Hello and welcome to Games Past Prime. This is a show where I take a look at video games and determine if they are past their prime or not. For me to do so though, there are a couple key categories which I look at. Story, presentation, and gameplay. Then at the very end there's a conclusion section where I wrap everything up in a nice little bow. You guys have read the title, you know what game we're playing. Let's take a look at Star Fox 64.
Message from General Pepper. Priority 1. We need your help, Star Fox. Andross has declared war. He's invaded the Lylat system and is trying to take over Corneria. Our army alone can't do the job. Hurry, Star Fox.
On a planet called Corneria, the fourth planet of the Lylat system, a scientist named Andross is driven into madness and nearly destroys the entire planet with the use of a biological weapon. General Pepper of Corneria exiles Andross to a faraway remote planet called Venom. Several years later, Pepper finds that there is suspicious activity going on Venom. Pepper then decides to hire a mercenary team named Star Fox, which includes James McCloud, Peppy Hare, and Pigma Dengar to investigate Venom. Pigma ends up betraying the team to Andross, which ends up with James being captured by Andross while Peppy escapes Venom and manages to inform James' son, Fox McCloud, about his father's fate. Several more years pass and Andross launches an attack on all of the Lylat system. While Pepper is defending Corneria, he decides to hire the new Star Fox team to help fight. The new team now consists of Fox McCloud, Peppy Hare, Falco Lombardi, and Slippy Toad. The crew travels through several planets and along the way fights Andross's henchmen, and at the end on Venom fight a rival mercenary group called Starwolf. This group is made up of Wolf O'Donnell, Leon Pulaski, Pigma Dengar, the one that did portray the original Star Fox crew, and Andrew Oikoni, that's a weird last name, who is Andross's nephew. There are two different endings depending on if you take the hard path or easy path. If you take the easy path, Fox will end up fighting Andross alone and find out it's just a robot version of him, which then leaves the real Andross out there somewhere in the system. However, if you take the hard path, Fox will still take on Andross alone, but he will force him to show his true form, which is that of a giant brain. After Fox defeats Andross, Fox must escape Andross's base and Venom before the base collapses around him. As Fox tries to find his way out, he sees a vision of his father James guiding him out of the crumbling base to safety. In either case, Fox and crew end up back on Corneria for a victory celebration. During the celebration, General Pepper offers Fox to join the Cornerian army. However, Fox declines because he wishes to stay with his team. The Star Fox crew then end up flying off into the sky on their next adventure, leaving behind a bill for General Pepper to pay. So before I go into the graphics or music, I want to address the footage that you have been seeing and are going to continue to see. I noticed while going back through the recordings that anytime there happened to be black on screen, there was a lot of what looked like static or fuzz on the screen. This wasn't happening while I was playing on my TV, so I'm not sure what's causing this at all. However, I did just want to mention that this isn't normal, and I had it on all of my recordings for only this game, so I'm not sure exactly what happened. Regardless, it's important to note because as I talk about the graphics, I think they look good, but remember, I didn't see the same thing you will be seeing. Anyways, the art design is pretty unique. Each planet is very different from each other and they all look stunning in my opinion. The amount of color they use, or even the lack thereof, really gives you a good feeling about the main theme of that planet. For example, early on the planets appear to be much more lifelike, and have way more color. The further you go into the story, the more bleak and dark some of the planets feel. And this is really interesting because this allows you to see the idea of Andross and his army attacking these planets all the way from Venom. The closer the location of Venom, the darker and more bleak that area has looked. The 3D looks pretty good overall to me. The vehicles you see don't have a lot of hard edges that many early 3D games had, and there are quite a wide variety of enemies. However, as you near the end of the game, you will start to see some of the same looking enemies from before. Alright, now let's talk about the music. It is just, frankly, really good in my opinion. From the opening to the stage music and finally the credits, it is all just well put together. All of the music really just gets you hyped up and really wants you to just get into action and shoot down hundreds and hundreds of enemies. Honestly, there isn't a good way to describe it other than this. There are a couple of tracks that are a bit darker, such as when you are fighting Andross or the Starwolf team, but most of the music is pretty upbeat to get you into the combat mood. So rather than drone on about it, I'll just let you guys listen to some of my favorite tracks, but I will also throw in one of the more darker or moody tracks so you get a full scope of the music that's in the game. The gameplay of Star Fox 64 is actually very interesting because the game has different styles of gameplay and different vehicles that are used. For example, most of the game is comprised as an on-rails shooter. This simply means that while you have control of where the R-Wing flies on the screen, you continue moving forward sort of like on a rail of a roller coaster. And the game mostly decides where you are going to go, though once in a while there are split paths you can choose in some levels, but you are mostly following where the game wants to go. This means that most levels are played exactly the same way with little to no difference regardless of how you play. However, like I said, some levels do have split paths or challenges. By going through these paths or completing these challenges, it will change what world you will visit next. For example, the overarching goal of the game is to get to Venom to defeat Andross. However, there are multiple paths to get there. As you beat one level, you will then move on to the next level. However, there are different levels you can visit based on completing those other paths or challenges. This also determines if you are going down the easy path or the hard path. The hard path requires you to take on the non-conventional paths and doing challenges on most of the levels to continue on that path. If you happen to not complete the challenges, you will end up moving back onto the easy path. Now then, like I said before, there are other styles of gameplay here. The other styles you will see once in a while is the all-range mode or the free-flying mode. This allows you an area to fully fly in without the restrictions of the rails. This is typically used when you are dogfighting, such as when you are fighting Starwolf or when you need to defend the Great Fox, which is Star Fox's headquarters. This style of gameplay is fun because you get to really try out your flying skills, and the game gives you a pretty large area to fight in. Now, let's talk about the vehicles you'll be using on these levels. The majority of the time you'll be flying inside the R-Wings, the flying ships that all of the Star Fox crew uses. However, on occasion there are other vehicles that are used, such as the Blue Marine, a submarine that is only used on one level that I can remember, Aquas. One thing to note is that the Blue Marine does have infinite missiles, which is pretty handy, and I'll talk about that later. Another vehicle you will see once in a while is the Landmaster, a tank that travels on the ground and has booster jets on the bottom side of that tank. Now I'm going to be honest with you guys, I really didn't like these levels. They don't fit in really with the rest of the game, and these levels don't really feel fleshed out or properly made. For example, the Blue Marine is only used once that I can remember, and this level is just not that balanced. Until I found a good strategy for it, this level was very difficult, and they only give you unlimited missiles because they knew it was not properly balanced. And this is just a cheap way to make this level in my opinion. Now onto the Landmaster levels. But before I can, I really should explain the controls a little bit more. So the control stick allows you to move around the screen. This is true with all styles of gameplay. The Z button allows you to lean the R wing 90 degrees to the left, and the R button allows you to lean the R wing 90 degrees to the right. If you double tap either Z or R, it will then allow the R wing to do a barrel roll. Now, these controls are a little different for each vehicle. For example, the Blue Marine can't lean 90 degrees by holding Z or R, however, just like the R wing, if you double tap the Z or R buttons, the Blue Marine will do a barrel roll. While you are in the Landmaster, you can lean using the Z or R buttons, but it isn't at a 90 degree angle, but you may still do a barrel roll if you double tap either Z or the R buttons. The A button allows you to fire the lasers of the vehicles, and if you hold the A button down, it allows you to charge that laser up for a more powerful shot. The B button allows you to either fire a bomb or a missile depending on which vehicle you happen to be using. The C button up allows you to change the camera angle. The left C button allows you to boost the vehicle you are in, while the right C button allows you to receive a message from Rob, the pilot of the Great Fox, who will send in a little gift to help with levels. The down C button allows you to brake the vehicle you are in, and this allows you to slow down if someone is following behind you. It will then force them to move in front of you so you can shoot them down. Now then, with the controls out of the way, let me explain why I didn't like the Landmaster's stages. See, the Landmaster is slow and a bit clunky to use. Aiming to shoot flying enemies is a bit of a pain in the ass since you are on the ground. Now, I expect this since we are in a tank after all. However, it just feels out of place given what we have been used to so far, and that is the speed of the R-Wings and the flying. The Landmaster just doesn't quite fit in here. They could have fixed this by just speeding up the Landmaster, or making it so you just don't need to fight flying enemies in these levels at all. The other problem I had is that the controls aren't exactly explained very well to you. So what I have told you already about the controls are true, but there is a key detail I've left out for the Landmaster's controls. So I explained that by double tapping the Z button or R button, it allows you to do a barrel roll. Well, the Landmaster doesn't really do a barrel roll, it does more of a dodge roll. Now the part that bothered me is that I was using the Z button the entire time to do barrel rolls in the R-Wing, and while you are doing the barrel rolls, you still have control over the ship. In this case, not only do you lose control of the Landmaster when you double tap Z, it only rolls to the left. If you wish the Landmaster to go to the right, you must double tap the R button. This really annoyed me because this wasn't properly communicated to me, so I kept trying to dodge to the right using the Z button, and I kept getting confused and assumed I was doing something wrong. Only later did I discover that while I was doing it wrong since I needed to be using the R button to dodge right, it wasn't told to me that this could even be an issue and made me feel like it wasn't actually in fact my fault. It was the game's fault for not really communicating this to the player properly. Now then, on the subject of things that really bother me, I need to talk about the wingmen. So throughout the game, you have the rest of your crew who fly with you. In case you forgot the people, I mean Peppy, Falco, and Slippy. Now then, throughout the levels, they will get attacked by enemies and ask for your aid. And you are going to want to shoot down the enemies that follow them because the rest of your crew also have health bars. If their health bars go down, well, I'm sure you can guess what happens. Now, why is this a problem? Well, one key reason is if you are going down the hard route, before you end up fighting Andross, you will need to fight the Starwolf team. If for whatever reason any of your crew are downed and can't fight, guess who the spare enemy gangs up on? That's right, you! If you don't have all of the Star Fox crew there to fight the Starwolf team, you will likely not beat them. It isn't impossible to do so, but it is incredibly difficult. While we're on the subject of the hard route, let's talk about the last and final thing that just straight up pissed me off. So you can get through most of, if not all of the game in about an hour. That's how long it took me to finish the easy route, and it took me about 45 minutes or so to get to the last stage of the game on the hard route. However, the final boss of the hard route is absolutely broken. Okay, so after you beat the Starwolf team, Fox decides that he will take on Andross by himself, which by the way is really dumb and a crap excuse to not have help for this fight. The first phase of Andross is pretty simple. You just need to destroy his hands and then his face. When he tries to attack you with his hands, you just dodge out of the way, and at some point he'll try to suck you up. At this point you just need to shoot a bomb into his giant mouth to get him to stop. This will also deal damage to him. After this, he'll go into phase 2, and he will show off his true form, which is that of a giant brain with eyes. Little weird, but alright. At this point, rather than the fight just being you moving around the screen and avoiding his attacks, it changes to all range mode, giving you a large fighting area and allows you to fully control where the R-Wing goes. At this point, his eyes will fly around and attack you. All you need to do is avoid the eyes and the brain, and when you get a chance, destroy his eyes. Once you take out his eyes, it will move on to phase 3. This phase is the one that is an absolute joke. See, the only way to hurt Andross now is to shoot a spot on the back bottom side of his brain. However, this is much easier said than done. Andross will follow you very quickly, making it difficult to get an angle to shoot this part of his brain. If he isn't following you, there is a chance when you get close to him that he will just straight up disappear, which is super annoying and really angering. Then on top of this, when you do get a chance to hit the part of the brain that you need to hit, you will end up rather close to the brain. And guess what? He has these tentacles below his brain that will grab you and do a crap ton of damage. This attack will probably kill you in about 2 or 3 hits. It is absolutely unfair. There were so many times where I was going in for the attack, and just as I was moving to get out of the way of the brain, it would feel like I lost total control of the ship, and it would just get freaking warped into his tentacles. It was so damn frustrating. Throughout the game, you gather lives, and at this point, I believe I had 8 lives built up, and I think the max is around 10. Every time you die, you must restart the entire boss fight over. I spent over 2 hours just fighting this boss over and over again in an attempt to beat him. Remember, this game I was able to beat and get close to beating in about 1 hour. Now throw on 2 more because of this BS boss. It feels like they made this damn boss so hard just to pad its f***ing length. F*** this game and f*** anyone who thought this was a good idea. Honestly, this was so frustrating. I have been mad at games before, but what made this worse is that I really liked most of the game. The flying feels good, defeating enemies felt rewarding. Even other boss fights were a bit of a challenge, but weren't too bad. The game got slowly harder as you went from level to level, but then out of nowhere it spikes like a rocket ship leaving orbit! What makes this even worse for me is that all the fond memories I have of playing this when I was younger and watching my brother play it. Once I got to this point, I just refused to continue playing. This was poor game design and feels absolutely lazy. Now with my rant done, I don't feel like talking about the gameplay anymore. Let's just head to the verdict. So with everything said and done, let's move on to the verdict. The verdict of Star Fox 64 is a game past its prime. Man, guys, this was really a hard decision. I'm gonna be completely honest. I had to talk to several friends and people to get the best possible angles to really come to this conclusion. The problem I had was the memories. Remembering playing this game when I was younger and sick, watching my brother playing the game. However, I think this was really the case of looking at this game through rose-tinted glasses. I had no intention of labeling this game past its prime. I started the game with the entire intent of recommending this game to people. But after what I just went through, I'm not so confident I can anymore. Don't get me wrong, if you already enjoy this game and have played it, then you know what you're getting yourself into. And if what I've already described sounds fun to you, then by all means play it. At least it's short. But for anyone new, or anyone who might not have played this before, I can't recommend this. Now, I don't know if the 3DS remake fixed any of these issues. I really wanted to play it before I finished this review, but I simply didn't get the chance to, so I don't know if that's any better. In any case, let me list the top 5 reasons I think this game is past its prime, and remember, this is just my opinion. Number 1. The idea of having wingmen is interesting, but I don't think it's implemented well. Because without them, finishing the hard route is difficult, and on top of that, I found myself accidentally shooting them on many occasions, almost like they were a program to get in the way, which was pretty annoying. Then add on top of that, hitting only the enemies that are following them is pretty hard to do without actually hitting them as well. Number 2. The other levels that don't have you flying the R-Wing just feel out of place. They feel like they don't belong, and honestly, I don't think these stages were designed very well. Especially that submarine stage, where to make up for the fact that it's difficult, they just decide to give you infinite missiles. Number 3. The challenges you need to be able to go down the hard route can be a bit obnoxious at times, such as needing to destroy these searchlights without being spotted, or needing to destroy these missiles before they reach the Great Fox. They may sound easy, but trust me, they are more difficult than they sound. Number 4. The difficulty curve is absolutely broken in this game. The easy route is way too easy to get through, and the hard route has a much better difficulty curve until you come to the very last level that decides to ramp up the difficulty to an absolutely extreme degree. Number 5. Last but not least, the final boss. I already went on a rant about why this last boss is broken. However, it really does feel like they padded the length since the game was so short. It's really sad to see a game that I remember so fondly not hold up to the expectations that I remember. This boss fight was the final giant last straw that broke the camel's back. Without this ridiculous fight, I could look past the rest of these faults because the rest of the game is pretty well put together, although maybe a bit short. I could chalk up this boss fight as me just being bad at the game, but I'm not so sure I believe this. Like I've said before, I have played plenty of difficult and hard games, but when those games are made right, it doesn't feel like the game has cheated you when you die. You feel like you only have yourself to blame and you just need to get better. In this case, I felt the game was being unfair down to the point that it felt like it was cheating, and this destroyed any amount of fun that I was having at this point. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did enjoy watching it, please consider subscribing. I upload videos every Sunday. Stay tuned to the very end of the video to get an audio hint at what the next video will be. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and thanks for watching.